Okay, new story. But first, I'm gonna do like a backstory story. So most of the ghost stories, or not most of them, but a lot of the ghost stories that I tell come from my grandma's side of the family and also out of a particular location. So my grandparents lived in this house I talk with my hands, in Michigan that was very much known as a haunted house. And there's a ton of stories associated with this house. So a lot of the stories are coming out of just one location, which I think makes it kind of cool because it's like, how did all this stuff happen in this house and you guys still lived there, right? So this story, and I'll explain the background behind me. So my grandma at one time had a little fabric store, and when she closed it down, she put all the fabric into her bedroom. So her bedroom was similar to this, like a hoarding nightmare. No offense, Granny, I love you. But I remember her room just being floor to ceiling fabric, and we called it the fabric room. So this story comes out of the fabric room, and I don't know if it was before or after the room became the fabric room, but this particular bedroom later in my life, or when I came into the picture as a kid, we only called it the fabric room. So my mom's a teenager in this story, so it's my mom's mother, and this story comes from my mom out of my grandma's house. So I might have to do this in 2 parts. I hope not, because I like to get them out in one. But anyway, so my mom says that one day she came in the house and she needed to go get something out of the fabric room, which I think may have been her bedroom at the time, so it probably wasn't the fabric room then. But anyway, she goes to open the door and the door won't open. But she said it wasn't just like the door wouldn't open, it was like someone wouldn't let her open the door. So she would push on the door, and she said the door would just come open just like a little bit, and then somebody would just slam it back completely shut. And we're gonna have to do a part 2. But she said that this went on over and over again, and then finally my grandma came and was like, what's going on? And she's like, I'm just trying to open the door. So they would get the door open just about this much, and then the door would boom, slam shut again. And she said it was like a wrestling match with someone on the other side. So at some points they thought, did somebody break into the house? Because the house was next to an alley, and they thought maybe somebody was in there and didn't want them in the room, but nobody was saying anything, and they were just in this tug of war, I guess, with the door. So anyway, I'll get it all out in part 2. Hold tight. I'm so sorry to do part 2s. I talk too much, and it's hard to get it all out in 3 minutes. Plus, I'm still learning. I have a lot to learn. Sound quality, whatever. It's a lot. So anyway, my mom's in this wrestling match with this door and this invisible force, and my grandma's now pushing on the door too. It's not opening. They don't know what to do. They're kind of, probably fussing with each other at this point. Is someone in there? Could there be something up against the door? What is happening right now? And my mom said it just went on for a while of them wrestling with this door. And then eventually, my grandma was a very religious woman. She believed in God. And lots of times when something like this was going on in the house, my grandma would resort to prayer, Bible scriptures, and it would improve the situation. So it's probably not a good sign for a haunting. That part makes me super uncomfortable. I like ghost stories on a superficial level, not in the terrifying realm. So anyway, after this tug of war match was going on a while, my grandma started to get nervous, and she just said that they just yelled for this to stop. Whatever was going on, stop. And my mom said the door just came open. No more tug of war. It just stopped. So I've noticed a trend in my family stories about this house too, is that each one of these stories seems to get progressively worse and worse. Living in this house definitely seemed to be like a boiling pot of activity until there's one grand finale story that I'll give you that happened to my mom when I get to that phase of ghost stories. But it does definitely seem over the timeline of looking back, each one of these experiences they were having, if they're in chronological order, I'm not 100% sure. It kind of seems like they are. Seems like things just kept getting scarier and scarier in this house. And as an adult, I've wondered, Does anyone else notice this house was terrifying? You know, like after my grandparents moved out, because they moved out in the 80s, or very late 80s, early 90s. But the house has since been tore down. It's in an area of Detroit that's pretty much, you know, just completely demolished. So I'll never know. But I do know that a bunch of family members had experiences in this house across all age ranges. Lots of people had experiences in this house. So I definitely don't think that people were making it up. I definitely think my mom was in this tug of war with probably a ghost, an entity of some kind. And my grandma told it to stop, and it listened. Pretty scary, right? I think so.